Hello, welcome to my channel, Crafty Fox DIYs. This video is part of the What Would You Make Challenge for June 2025. The hosts of the What Would You Make Challenge are Brenda from Rustic and Lace DIY and Christine from Divine Designs. This month's guest host is Mariga from Mariga Creations. I'll have a link to their channels as well as a link to the playlist so that you can get all kinds of wood DIY inspiration in the description box. Okay, let's get into it. For this first project, I'm using this little wagon that I got from Dollar General. It was after fall last year, and so I got it half off. I only paid like $2.50 for it. And I'm going to paint the wheels red. You can use whatever color of red you want to. And I'm just painting these red because it just goes with the theme better. This whole video is going to be honeybees and strawberries theme. That's what I decided to decorate our front porch in this summer. So, like I said, I'm just painting those red. I'm going to set those to the side and let those dry. Now I have an acorn, and this is what I'm going to use to make my strawberries. So I'm just going to paint the bottom part of the acorn in a red color. You can use whatever color you think looks best for your strawberries. You can also buy fake strawberries if you want to, but I like to make things as cheap as possible. You know, the more money I can save, the better, and acorns are free. Now I have these little flowers. I cut these from shelf liner, and you'll see that later on the video, me cutting some of those out. And then I'm just taking some yellow paint and the end of my paintbrush and painting the center of it yellow so that they will look like, flowers that you typically see, with strawberries. You know how the flowers form and then you get your strawberries. So there's that. And then I have these long toothpicks. They're like for appetizers. I got these on clearance at Kroger, but you can get them just about anywhere. And I also have this bead. It's yellow, and I'm going to be using it to make a honeybee. So I'm gluing one of those long toothpicks into the bead. And now I'm going to take some, this is heavy thread, and it's black, and I'm going to use that to make the stripes on my bead so that I can make my honeybee with it. And I just put some hot glue on there, and I'm wrapping the heavy string around the bee. You could also use a pipe cleaner or yarn, whatever you have that would work. You could paint the stripes on if you want to. Just whatever works. And then I'm going to do 2 stripes. So now I'm doing my second stripe. Just going to wrap it around about 3 times. I think made it look thick enough that you could, tell what I was trying to create with it. I know I have this plastic, you know how you buy Christmas cards, like from Dollar Tree, and they have that plastic packaging on there? That's what I'm using to make the wings for my bee. You could use whatever, suits you to make your wings with. But this is what I'm using. I thought they would look more realistic this way. So I folded the plastic in half, and then I'm cutting it out so that way the wings will match more closely on either side. So it's hard to cut exactly the same, from one side to the other. And then I'm just going to use some hot glue and secure the wings onto my bead. And there I have my little bee. Okay, now I'm going to paint the top part of my strawberry green. Like the leaves on the top. I had to let the red paint dry. And then I'm taking a black permanent marker and just making my seeds on the strawberry. And there we have that. Now I'm taking some hot glue and gluing the long toothpicks onto my strawberries. That way I could stick them into my arrangement that I'm going to make in my little wagon. So I'm just going to do that for all of these. And you can see I've set my X-Acto box over here because they kept wanting to roll on their side. I got a little bit of red paint on the white part of the wagon, so I'm just taking a white paint pen and going over that red paint to cover it up. I don't cover it completely. It would not go over that red completely all the way, but it's okay. You can't see it once the project's done. Okay, so I recently got a Cricut Joy Extra, and I'm loving it, but I am still really new at it. So I'm not going to be doing any tutorials in any way, shape, or form. I'm just showing you what I used to make this. So don't try to copy me how I do this. I'm learning as I go. You're watching me learn this right here in real time. So I'm weeding out the vinyl, as you can see here, and Like I said, I'm completely new at this. It's not the first time that I have weeded something, but I'm still really new and still learning all of the processes. But it's so much fun. I'm so glad that I finally got one, and I'm really enjoying it. So you'll be seeing some projects with that. Now the strawberries that I printed at the bottom, some of my letters came off, and you see here that what I'm doing is pulling out those letters, and I was able to piece it back together, and you'll see it comes out just fine on my wagon. So I'm cutting my transfer tape so that I can transfer my letters onto my wagon. So I'm just going to separate those two words so that I can, well, farm fresh on the top and then strawberries on the bottom. Now I'm transferring to the transfer tape and then onto my wagon. Okay, now I'm going to do the word strawberries. And it's like I said, completely, learning this as we go. And you can see it turned out okay. It's like I said, I was able to piece it together well enough that it worked out. And now I also cut out a strawberry, and I'm not going to use transfer tape on it. I'm just going to pull it off and then stick it onto the wagon. I think it would be pretty simple. It's simple to do, just one little piece like that. When you're trying to do letters and you want to keep them all aligned, then need the transfer tape, but just a little piece like this. I don't. Then I have like these little curly cues. I cut those out, and I learned when I was getting ready to put the second one on, I didn't mirror it, so it is the same exact shape and everything. It's not going the opposite direction, if that makes any sense. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. But anyway, it still looks okay, and I was happy with how it turned out. See, it's not turned the other way. But that's okay. Like I said, I still like how it turned out. So I'm just going to press everything down real good. Now I have this foam, and I'm going to just cut it to fit inside my wagon. And then I'm going to put some hot glue on there to secure it into the wagon so I don't have to worry about it coming out or anything. I left the other side of the wagon that had the fall thing on there about the pumpkins or whatever. I left it like it is. That way I can use it in the fall time also. I can take the strawberries out and put some pumpkins in there. So I'm going to have my embellishments, my florals, my greenery. Just have this vine here, and I'm just going to hot glue it around. I'm also going to bring it around the front, and this is going to help cover up some of that red that the white paint didn't cover whenever I tried to go back over it. I don't know if there was any way that I could have removed the wheels so that they would have been easier to paint without getting paint on the wagon. Also, if I'd had some painter's tape, that would have helped. But unfortunately, someone borrowed mine, and I no longer have any. So now I'm taking my strawberries that are on my little toothpicks and sticking those into the foam. And now I'm taking some leaves, and I'm going to fill that all in so that you cannot see the foam. So I'm just going to keep putting all these leaves in here. Every time I, do a project, and if I just pull the flowers off of the stems, but I leave the leaves on, I save those leaves because they come in handy for things like this. And these were just the right color, like how dark they were. It just seemed like they suited the strawberries. So just like I said, just going to keep gluing those in until I have the foam completely covered up and I can no longer see it. I almost forgot my bee whenever I was doing this, and you'll see that here in a minute. But I'm taking those flowers that I cut from the shelf liner. I have a bunch of that shelf liner so I can make oodles of flowers. And I've used a lot of the shelf liner too. I have it in the kitchen on my shelves and baker's rack and everything. So there it is. Okay, and I think, oh, I'm done. And then I realize I forgot my bees. So now I'm going to stick my bee in there. And I don't know if it was where the bead was so heavy or what, but it was falling over in the foam a little bit. So I put some hot glue on the bottom to help it stand up right where I wanted it to be. Okay, and there we go. I think this is probably my favorite project in this video. Although I like all of them, I really love my Farm Fresh Strawberries wagon. Okay, for this second project, I have this cutting board. Now this is MDF, but MDF is a wood product. And this also I got from Dollar General, 50% off after fall last year. So I only paid 50 cents for this, and I bought several of these. I wish I'd have bought more wagons. So I'm just giving this a coat of yellow paint. I couldn't decide if I wanted to do another coat or not while I was painting it, but after it dried, I used my hairdryer on it, and after it dried, I liked the color of it, so I just left it as it was. I thought it had a really nice honey yellow color to it, so I just left it like that. Okay, so now I have my vinyl. This is a honey pot and little honey dipper, and so I'm weeding those out so that way I can put those onto my board. As you can see here, had little pieces, give me a little bit of trouble, so I'm going to work with that to get it to stay down, so I don't want to pull it up. There, you can see my honey pot, and then I have to weed out some of the inner pieces so that you can more clearly see that it is a honey pot. There's lots of different designs on Design Space, but this was my favorite honey pot. It was just simple and, you know, just perfect for what I was doing. Now I also cut some bees out, so that's what I'm weeding here, and I needed to get, you know, several of them weeded out for my project, so I take some time to get all those done. All those little pieces had to come out of there for the stripes and the wings and everything. Okay, so now I'm going to pull my vinyl off of the little sheet there, and the honey pot, it turned out okay not using the transfer tape, but because I was having to put two pieces together, I did get it off a little bit. So I learned that using the transfer tape when you have multiple pieces for one image is the best thing to do. Now obviously I done that with the honey dipper because otherwise it would have definitely been a mess. But like I said, the honey pot is a little off, but it's not real bad. And then I'm just going to use a permanent marker to write the word honey on the little, like the little sticker part of the honey pot. I could have printed out the word honey, but I just went ahead and done it this way. And now I'm taking my little bees and I'm going to put those onto my board. Just, you know, different places around it. And then also some more of those strawberries like I had put on the wagon. And then I'm going to take some green paint and I'm going to paint the leaf parts on top of the strawberries green. Where I pulled the vinyl out of there, or weeded it out, it's yellow, and I didn't want the tops of the strawberries to be yellow, so I'm painting those green. But the seeds, they're showing through, and those are yellow, and that's just fine because seeds typically are yellow on strawberries. So I'm just going to do those. Okay, so now I'm going to add embellishments to the top of my board, and I have this red ribbon. I'm just going to tie a simple shoestring bow with it, and that's, I'm going to do, just like I said, just a simple little bow, twist everything around so, you know, it's facing the way I want it to be. And then I'm going to hot glue this greenery onto the top of the board. And then I'm going to add some leaves on there also. I had to refill my glue stick there. Okay, add those leaves on top, and that was burning my fingers through there, so I'm using one of my little finger protectors. That one there is a little big for my fingers, so I just hold on to it instead of putting on my finger. It just doesn't feel comfortable. I'm going to take some more of those little vinyl flowers from the shelf liner, and I'm going to glue those on there as well. Then I'm going to glue my ribbon on the top. I took one of those flowers and also glued it onto the little honey pot. Then to the top I'm going to add a jute twine hanger. And there's that one all finished. Okay, for this third project, I'm using this wood round. I ordered a pack of these from Temu for almost nothing, but you can get these at Dollar Tree. And then I'm just going to give it 2 good coats of white paint to completely cover it. And then, once again, with my vinyl, I cut out the words honeybees and strawberries. So here I am weeding that out. As you can see, still learning. And I'm just taking my time, make sure that I don't tear any of the letters or anything. Okay, so I got all of the big piece of vinyl off, so I'm just going to continue weeding, taking all the center parts out of all of the letters. Okay, so I figured out the placement that I wanted to put my letters in, and I'm just using the transfer tape to transfer my letters to my wood round. I started at the bottom and worked my way up. I figured that would be the easiest way to do it. And that and symbol was giving me an awful time. Did not want to come off of there. But I did finally get it, and it turned out okay. Okay, so I have these strawberries that I made from beads, like, just in those beaded necklaces. That's what I used to make these strawberries, and I thought I had a video of me making them, but have no idea where that went to. So I just, like a pyramid of red beads, and then added a row on top of green, and then one more in the center to look like a stem for the strawberries. And then also some of those vinyl bees, and I hot glued strawberries on and put the vinyl bees on. Now I'm using a combination of jute twine and baker's twine to create the hanger for my wood round. So I'm just going to cut a piece of that off, then tie a knot in the end, thread it through both holes, and tie a knot in the other end. And there we go. And I discovered that I had put my letters on in the wrong spot, so that's not centered. And you can see that now. You can kind of see how my knots aren't completely lined up there. Okay, so now I'm taking my ribbon that I chose I wanted to use for this, and I'm just putting them in an X pattern, stacking them on top of each other. And then I'm going to use some jute twine to secure them together in the center. I had that ribbon upside down and wanted the shiny part out. And so that's what I was doing there. Now I'm taking my jute twine and tying my X of ribbon in the center. And then I'm going to hot glue that to the top, and I tested it to make sure that I had it positioned right so that when it's hanging, because I'm going to have to hang it kind of off-centered, so that way it'll look centered, if that makes any sense. Since I didn't get my letters on right, I didn't pay attention to the placement of my holes at the top like I should have whenever I was putting the letters on. But it's okay because it turns out all right. And then I also glued a flower to the center. It was just a plain white flower. It's more or less petals off of a bigger flower. And then I put one of those vinyl flowers on there, and then I glued some of those vinyl flowers from the shelf liner on the sign as well. Okay, now for this next one. Okay, here I am cutting those flowers from the shelf liner. See how I'm doing that? So, and then I also saved these other parts too because they scream snowflakes. So you're definitely going to see these at Christmas time. So then I have this red material, and I have folded it in two, and then I'm just cutting a strawberry shape. Now you'll see here in a minute what I'm talking about here. I wish I had cut it more into a point where I have it so that it's more straight. See how it is there at the bottom? It's more straight, and it's not very strawberry-ish looking to me. Okay, now I have folded this over where that straight part was and put a hole in it, and that's so I can thread some of that heavy thread through, the heavy black thread. I'm putting it through there, and a bee is going to hang from that thread. So what I'm using for the bee, and this is the wood part of this project, is one of these clothespins from Dollar Tree. They're not the smallest clothespins that they have. They're the next size up. And so whenever I went to glue my strawberry together, as you're seeing here, I did put some glue there where the thread was coming through that hole to make sure that it doesn't pull all the way through the hole. It stays inside. Then I'm just going to glue up both sides of the strawberry until I get to the top, which I'm going to leave open so that I can stuff it. Now for the top part so that it can hang, I'm taking another piece of that heavy black thread. I'm going to glue it to the top, and I'm going to take another piece of that red material and put it over the thread so that it's nice and secure. And then I'm going to stuff my strawberry. Once I get all the stuffing in, then I'm going to glue up the top. Now I'm using this green material here, and I get so off camera that I don't show most of it, but I'm just cutting the leaves that are going to go on the top of the strawberry. That's what I'm doing. Okay, now that I've got that cut out, I'm going to use hot glue to secure my leaves to this top of my strawberry. And I also, where the stem part is, I make sure that I glue it to my string so that when it's hanging, the stem stands up instead of falling over, which is optional. And then I just take a black permanent marker and draw some seeds onto the strawberry, and also I draw stripes onto my bumblebee. I also cut some some wings out of that plastic and glued that into the inside of the clothespin. And now I'm taking some of this jute twine that also has green ribbon leaves on it. I ordered this from Temu, and I glued it around the strawberry in like a vine kind of pattern. And then I'm taking some more of those flowers and I'm gluing those onto the vine. And there we have that. Okay, let's take one final look at all of these projects. That's all for this video. Let me know which one of these DIYs was your favorite. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.